My father always praised his favorite son, not me, so when I left his company for another, his company collapsed. My name is Ephraim Bell, and I've worked for my father's company, Bell & Sons Plumbing, since I was 19. I'm 34 now, and as of 6 months ago, I walked away. Not out of anger. Not in a dramatic scene. Just, gone. And as I write this, their empire is quietly folding in on itself. I wasn't always sure I'd leave. For most of my adult life, I tried to believe loyalty was stronger than resentment, that working hard enough could earn respect. That belief kept me tethered far too long. My dad, Vernon Bell, started the company from scratch, just him, a wrench, and a van. He named it Bell & Sons before he even had children. That was his dream, to build a legacy he could pass down. And I wanted to be part of that. I truly did. When I joined the business, I didn't expect shortcuts. After college, where I earned a degree in operations management, Dad insisted I learn from the ground up. For 3 years, I was under houses, clearing pipes, hauling materials in the rain. I didn't complain. It mattered to me to do things right. I got my master plumber certification, studied our books, and slowly stepped into management. By the time I was 26, we'd grown from a 6-man team to 15 full-time plumbers and 3 office staff. We were one of the most trusted plumbing outfits in our city. It didn't happen by accident. I introduced digital scheduling, invoice automation, post-service follow-ups, all things our competitors weren't doing yet. Customer retention improved, and our annual revenue jumped 40% over 2 years. Dad saw the success. He nodded when I showed him numbers. But the words I longed to hear, "I'm proud of you," or even just "well done," never came. Instead, he spoke more often about my younger brother, Clark, and his natural touch with people. Clark had charisma, no doubt. He also had no real plumbing experience, no certifications, and no interest in logistics. Clark spent most of his 20s drifting from job to job, some landscaping, some bartending, a few online ventures that never really went anywhere. He was always just about to find his path. But then, at 30, he decided to join the family business. Dad lit up like it was Christmas morning. From the start, things were unequal. Clark was given an office with a window and a title that didn't mean much: client engagement lead. His responsibilities were vague: take photos for social media, meet a few contractors for lunch, shake hands. Meanwhile, I was managing a full team of field techs, running payroll, negotiating supplier contracts, and handling our largest accounts. But at meetings, Dad beamed whenever Clark shared a minor win, like setting up a partnership with a small construction firm. Never mind that the same week, I'd saved us $8,000 by renegotiating a supply chain contract. Still, I stayed quiet. I told myself the work spoke for itself. That Clark was new, and Dad was just being encouraging. Then came the moment I stopped believing that. We were preparing a bid for a large commercial contract, renovating all plumbing in a 10-building apartment complex. It would have been our biggest job yet. I built a detailed proposal, 200 pages, 3 alternate budgets, phased labor schedules. I pulled an all-nighter before the pitch to polish the numbers. When we arrived at the meeting, Dad surprised me by saying Clark would lead the presentation. I thought it was a joke. Clark hadn't read the bid, didn't know the scope, and couldn't answer basic questions. I ended up stepping in halfway through just to salvage the meeting. We got the job, barely. On the ride back, Dad chuckled and said, "Clark really read the room, didn't he? That's the kind of presence we need more of." I stared out the window the rest of the drive. I'd love to say that moment broke something. But truthfully, I'd been fracturing for years. That was just the first time I let myself see it clearly. The next blow came months later, and it was personal. That's when Hannah entered the picture. Her name was Hannah Lockwood, and she wasn't just smart, she had presence. The kind that made you want to stand a little straighter around her. She walked into our office one rainy Wednesday morning to interview for the newly vacated office manager role. Within 5 minutes of her interview, I knew she was the best candidate we'd seen in years. Hannah had a background in logistics. 3 years at a fast-growing HVAC company where she'd helped rebuild their scheduling and CRM systems. She had an MBA. And even more than her credentials, she had a calm clarity, like she knew how to fix broken things without panic. Dad hired her the next day. That never happened before. Her impact was immediate. She updated our filing system, fixed gaps in our billing records, and recovered over $20,000 in missed revenue in her first month. Our technicians liked her, she listened and never condescended. Even the toughest guys started following her systems without complaint. And me? I started looking forward to our shared coffee breaks. We talked about workflow optimizations at first. Then books. Documentaries. Long hikes. Her laugh was the kind of quiet thing that made you lean in to hear it again. We didn't rush into anything. For a while, I convinced myself we were just two professionals who happened to click. But there was something unspoken between us. Something that became hard to ignore when I caught her looking at me one afternoon as I explained a scheduling matrix to one of the new hires. I asked her to dinner, not a coffee or a quick lunch, but dinner. A proper Friday evening at a quiet restaurant with good food and space to talk. When I asked, she smiled. Yes. I'd like that. It felt like maybe things were turning. After so many years of watching my contributions go unacknowledged, here was someone who didn't just see the effort, I think she respected it. I didn't tell anyone. I knew better. In my family, anything personal became communal within hours. I just wanted this one thing for myself. A moment not reshaped by my father's pride or my brother's need to be the center of attention. 2 days before our date, I came back from a job site earlier than expected. I was walking past the break room when I heard Hannah laugh. That soft, real laugh. But the voice she was laughing at wasn't mine. I stepped in to grab a coffee. Clark was there, leaning against the counter, showing her something on his phone. They were standing closer than two people normally would during office hours. Hey, F, Clark said without missing a beat. Just showing Hannah the fishing spot from last weekend. Pretty nice, huh? Fishing? Clark once asked if bass were freshwater or not. I stared at the photo briefly, sunset over a lake, clearly pulled off the internet or a buddy's Instagram. Hannah turned and smiled at me, but it wasn't the same as before. Something had shifted. The next day, she caught me just before I left. About Friday, she said, her voice measured, almost rehearsed. I'm really sorry. I'll need to reschedule. Something's come up. It was the kind of phrase designed not to invite questions. I nodded, said of course, and walked away. I didn't ask for a new date. Friday evening, I worked late. Around 8:30, I got a message from one of our field leads. Saw Clark and Hannah at Birch Grove. Thought you were supposed to be out with her tonight? Birch Grove. The restaurant I had reservations at. That weekend, Mom called out of the blue. Have you met Hannah? Clark says she's brilliant. Organized. Just what your dad's been looking for. She works in my office, I said, keeping my voice neutral. Well, isn't that wonderful? Clark says they're getting along so well. Like two peas. I stayed quiet for a long moment. I had asked her out, I finally said. She said yes. Then changed her mind when Clark stepped in. A pause. The kind of silence where someone's rewriting their reaction. Sweetheart, you know your brother's always had a gift with people. That doesn't mean anything bad about you. You're just more focused. Some people don't always know how to appreciate that. It wasn't the words. It was the tone, the familiar implication that I was too serious, too structured, too much of the wrong thing. Hannah and Clark became inseparable after that. Staff started referring to them as the office couple. Dad was thrilled. Finally, he said to me one morning, a family dynamic we can build on. Can you imagine the future of Bell and Sons? I could. And it didn't include me. Still, I didn't quit. I kept showing up. I handled a 12-property maintenance account, reorganized our technician certification system, and secured a new municipal contract. And then, out of nowhere, Dad called a staff meeting. Promotion time, he said. Ephraim's been a rock. He's taking over as senior operations manager. A surprise. A rare recognition. But he wasn't done. I wasn't jubilant. I was tired. But I felt something close to pride. Like maybe, just maybe, the work did matter. Then came Sunday dinner. Sunday dinner at my parents' house had become a tradition more out of habit than joy. Every week, I told myself I might skip it. And every week, I showed up. Not because I was welcome, but because some part of me still believed I could belong there. That evening, the table was set with my mother's best linens. Roast beef, garlic potatoes, and her famous apple crumble. A celebration meal, she called it. At first, I assumed it was about my promotion. Midway through the meal, Dad cleared his throat. I set down my fork. We've got some news, he said, looking not at me, but at Clark and Hannah, seated side by side. Clark reached into his pocket and pulled out a ring. Not subtle. Not understated. Hannah turned toward him with a rehearsed gasp, though I couldn't tell if she already knew or if they'd choreographed the whole moment in advance. We're engaged, he announced. Mom gasped. Dad grinned. I sat frozen. About time, Dad said, slapping Clark on the back. You two are going to be a force. Family and business stronger together. Then Dad turned to Clark and added, as casually as someone offering an extra slice of bread, that new truck, the F-250. I think it makes more sense for you two now. You'll need it for family trips, hauling baby gear one day. Consider it a gift. Silence. Or maybe just in my ears. That truck is part of my promotion, I said, quietly. It's meant for site visits. Equipment runs. I've already started planning routing based on its capacity. Dad didn't blink. You've got your old truck, don't you? Still runs? Barely, I said. The mechanic said it wouldn't pass inspection next quarter. He waved a hand like that was irrelevant. We'll figure something out. Let's not spoil a nice meal. Spoil a nice meal. As if I was the problem. I excused myself before dessert. Drove home with the windows down and the radio off. Just air and silence. That night, I didn't rage. I didn't punch a wall or write a furious email. I sat at my desk, opened a blank document, and typed a letter with the precision I'd used for every proposal I'd ever written for that company. Subject: Notice of Resignation. Dear Dad. I am formally resigning from Bell & Sons Plumbing, effective immediately. I will use my accrued vacation time and will not be returning to the office. I wish you, Clark, and the team all the best. Ephraim. I hit send, closed the laptop, and took a deep breath. For the first time in 15 years, I didn't have to be up at dawn for a job that saw me as replaceable. I turned off my phone. But by the next morning, when I turned it back on, I already had 5 voicemails. Dad, you're overreacting. Clark, come on, man. Don't make this about the truck. Mom, we're worried. Can we just talk? Hannah, I didn't mean for this to happen. Please, let's talk. I listened to none of them fully. Not out of spite. I simply didn't have space for it anymore. Instead, I updated my resume. Wrote a clean, modest cover letter. And by the end of the week, I had 3 interviews lined up. A week later, I signed an offer with Lanigan Mechanical, a growing HVAC and plumbing firm with a stellar reputation and a focus on systems management. The owner, Julian Lanigan, was kind, direct, and sharp. He asked real questions. He listened. During our second conversation, he said, "You've already built what we're trying to grow into. I'm not just hiring a manager, I'm bringing in a partner." The offer included a partnership track, proper salary, and yes, a company vehicle. Another Ford. This one an F-350. The keys came with a simple note. "We see the work you've done. Let's build something that lasts." I didn't cry. But something inside me cracked open. I wasn't a son trying to prove his worth anymore. I was a professional building something that didn't require permission. And then came the news from the place I left behind. It started with a message from Troy, one of our senior techs back at Bell & Sons. He'd always been respectful. Never took sides. Just showed up, did excellent work, and quietly trusted the leadership. Apparently, that trust was cracking. Things are a mess. Double-booked crews. Clients furious. No one's coordinating certifications. Your system's still here, but no one knows how to run it. I thanked him and wished him well. He didn't respond, but 2 days later, he texted again. Clark put me on a 4-job run with no lunch and sent a new guy with me who'd never soldered pipe. We lost 2 commercial accounts in 10 days. I'm sending out resumes. It didn't bring me satisfaction. Not really. Just a dull echo of vindication. I hadn't exaggerated the fragility of the system when I'd warned them it needed maintenance. The fall was faster than I expected. Their biggest client, a retirement housing group that trusted us with 7 facilities, dropped them within a month. Word spread. Reviews on their website plummeted. Poor scheduling. Rude technician. They missed an emergency call and never followed up. Used to be reliable. Now it's chaos. Even more revealing were the quiet whispers from our suppliers. One of them, Marta, who'd handled our inventory orders for years, called me at my new job. "Not trying to stir anything, but did you leave because of what's happening over there?" I said I'd left for better alignment with my values. She understood. "They're weeks behind on invoices. Clark tried to renegotiate terms but didn't even know the bulk order schedule. Your father seemed surprised by how much he didn't know." I thanked her and hung up. Julian, my new boss, overheard part of it. He chuckled softly. "You know, it takes real strength not to gloat when you're right." "I don't want revenge," I said. "I just want peace." And I had it. For the first time in years, I had it. At Lanigan, I wasn't just respected, I was trusted. When I rolled out a new client retention process, Julian credited me publicly at our team meeting. Not performatively. Genuinely. He said, "We hired Ephraim because he knows what we didn't." That's what growth looks like. The difference was stark. And then came Claire. She was a civil engineer, working with one of our project partners. We met on site for a mid-phase inspection. I was walking her through our layout schematics when she stopped, pointed to a detail I'd overlooked, and said, "You've got the right idea here, but check the foundation clearance. You're 6 inches short on the east line." I double-checked. She was right. She didn't gloat. Just nodded, then asked if I wanted to grab a coffee sometime, not out of flirtation, but mutual curiosity. It wasn't dramatic. Just easy. We had dinner the following weekend. Then a hike. Then a Sunday morning at the farmer's market where we talked about our families. I told her about Bell & Sons. About the ring. The truck. The unspoken erasure of years of effort. She listened carefully, then said, "So you gave them everything, and they asked you to be quiet about it?" That was it. A sentence that summed up a decade. Claire didn't fix me. But she gave me space to feel like I didn't need fixing. 2 months later, we ran into Clark and Hannah at a hardware store. It wasn't intentional. Just bad timing. Clark looked older, tired, like someone who was burning energy to keep up appearances. Hannah noticed us first. Her eyes widened slightly when she saw Claire beside me. "Ephraim," she said. "Hello, Hannah," I replied. Clark gave a short nod. "Hey, man." Claire extended a hand. "Claire. I've heard a lot about your family business." Hannah's smile faltered. "It's been challenging. We're rebuilding." "Rebuilding's hard when no one's holding the blueprint," I said before I could stop myself. Claire gently nudged my arm. Clark cleared his throat. "That truck's been giving me trouble, by the way. Any idea what it might be?" I blinked. "You asking me to fix the truck?" "It's the one you were using before," he shrugged. "You probably know its quirks better." "I know it well enough to let it go," I said. The silence after that was deep and final. The encounter at the hardware store marked the last time I saw Clark in person. He didn't follow up, didn't text again. Maybe he realized that I wasn't going to be the bridge back. Or maybe he was just tired of pretending the structure hadn't already collapsed. Hannah emailed me a week later. It wasn't long. It wasn't emotional. It was almost clinical. "I wanted to acknowledge everything you did for the company, for me, and for our team. I didn't see clearly then. I do now. I hope you found what you deserve." She signed it Hannah Lockwood. Not Hannah Bell. That told me everything I needed to know. A month later, Troy sent one final message. "Companies being evaluated for partial sale. Commercial side may split off. Too much debt. Too little leadership." I didn't respond. There was nothing left to say. Instead, I poured myself into work. Into Lanigan's future. Into building systems that others could sustain. I began mentoring our junior ops coordinators, helping them learn what no one ever taught me. I got a small bonus for one of our best quarters. But more than that, I was given time. Freedom. Trust. Claire and I found our rhythm too. She wasn't dramatic or showy. She asked about my day, remembered details I thought I'd only muttered in passing, and never tried to fix things, just stood beside me while I figured them out. We hiked often. We laughed about tools we'd accidentally left in crawlspaces. One morning, she handed me a set of blueprints she'd been working on. I'd been redesigning my guest bathroom. Want to help me install the new fixtures? It was her way of inviting me into her space. That same weekend, we hosted her niece's birthday at a local park. Claire had baked cupcakes. I ended up showing a couple of kids how to make PVC marshmallow launchers. No one asked about Clark. Or Dad. Or Bell & Sons. And for the first time in years, I wasn't thinking about what I had lost. I was simply present. One Sunday, my phone rang. It was my mother. She left a voicemail. It's quieter here. Caleb's been different. Your father doesn't talk much. I think we miss you more than we realized. I didn't call back. Not out of bitterness. I simply didn't need their approval anymore. It took years, but I finally learned something vital. Loyalty is not servitude. Hard work is not a substitute for love. And silence, when you're being diminished, is not grace, it's surrender. I had given them everything. My time, my expertise, my belief. And when they handed it all to someone else without thought, I discovered the truth I'd refused to face for too long. Some families build legacies. Others just protect illusions. I stopped protecting theirs. And started building mine. Thank you for watching the video. Like it if you watched the video to the end, and don't forget to subscribe. Have a nice day.